Welcome to I Love This Thing So Freaking Much, a podcast about passion. My name is Sophie Katz, and today I am joined by Lilith, a freelance artist. Welcome to the show, Lilith.
Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for being here. So, here is how this works. Lilith will have 3 minutes to talk about something that they love. This can be a person, place, thing, concept, activity, anything they want. Our only requirement is that they love it wholeheartedly and want to tell us why. Are you ready, Lilith?
I can be.
I think you are. All right. Got my timer here. Now, what do you love so freaking much?
I love animation. Way too much. I love how close it feels, as close as I can get to magic, because I'm basically tricking your eye into seeing movement when there is none. And I can make it look like however I want. And I'm using like the general eye, but like anybody who does animation does that. Because it's abusing the way your eye sees things to create an illusion of movement, which is really cool, and basically the only reason it works is because our eyes are really lazy. Because otherwise, if our eyes worked better, films and animation wouldn't work. And that's really cool to me. They're also, with animated stories, you can also be much more creative with your storytelling. As opposed to film, you kind of have to have what you're looking at be it has to be real in that regard. Whereas with animation, I can just as easily make my character a triangle in a triangle world and tell that story and have people understand it and believe it. I'm very traditional when it comes to animation. I, in fact, majored in 2D animation, which everybody was like, that's completely useless. And I'm like, but I love it. And that's mostly just because I find 3D animation very limiting in the forms you can do with it. Which is just kind of a weird way of looking at it, because because I've talked about it with people coming at it from film, they're like, oh, see, CGI 3D animation opens up a whole new world for film, but it's like a halfway between the two. Because for everything it does well, it does something poorly. And then you end up in the uncanny valley, which is just unpleasant and makes me sad. But it can do so much, and it's so cool. I'm better with a prompt.
Well, that's the time anyways. It sounds like it was the right time to end.
I rambled well.
Yeah, thank you for telling us about animation today.
Of course.
How about let's go back in time. Do you have any particular memories that are how you first got interested in animation?
Animation is one of those things that I've always loved. Animation has been there for a large portion of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm 3 days older than the original Nicktoons.
Ooh.
So all of those were definitely in my childhood. My grandfather loves the Looney Tunes, Tom and Jerry, and had several of them on VHS, including several Fleischer Brother cartoons. We had all of the Fleischer Studios Supermans, which I loved as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So animation has just always been there in my life. As I was exploring what I wanted to do with my life, it kept coming up as a way of telling stories, as well as using like the skills I have. Like, I draw all the time, and I also have done a lot of like weird architectural drafting in my past. It was a very natural fit for me wanting to tell stories to go into animation.
Yeah, like you said before, animation is the trick of taking still images and make it seem like it's moving. So if you're already good at drawing still images, let's just put a lot of them together and make that magic.
Mm-hmm. Especially, I almost went into cinematography because for a very similar reason. And the main reason why I didn't go into cinematography and instead went into animation is because I didn't want to be restricted by what is in front of me
Ooh.
in that regard. I bring a lot of cinematography into my projects and trying to do fun things with the camera because that is a cool way of, because you have to treat it like it's a camera, but you can put it wherever you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
You can get impossible camera angles in animation and impossible camera moves as well. So you can freely make your camera, if you have like a super like traumatic moment, you can have the camera spin like 500 miles an hour and have it be and have it work. You don't have to force the poor camera operator to go around at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
No, that'd be difficult. You're bound by like gravity and dizziness and things like that in reality.
Those pesky laws of physics.
Yeah, you talked before about limitations regarding 3D animation in particular. You use the phrase uncanny valley, and I'm not sure I've heard of this concept before, but I think some people out there might not have. Could you define what is the uncanny valley and why you want to avoid it?
So the uncanny valley is the so if we think about a graph, if you think about the one thing of the graph is realism and the other one the image. So as it gets closer to, as the drawing gets closer to being real, so that's it. It's believability and realism are the two axes. And as you get closer to realism, you believe it, and then at a certain point, you don't believe it. That's why those robots are so creepy. Those androids with like human faces look so creepy. Because our brain perceives it as not quite right. And our brain is really good at that. It wants to find faces and stuff, but if it's close enough but not quite there, our brain goes, no, kill it with fire.
Mm-hmm. So if you have a really detailed, like 3D animated face, that might be less appealing than a really cartoony sort of Mickey Mouse face.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any favorite examples, like maybe it's a movie or a TV show or a game, some piece of animation that stands out in your brain as this is a fantastic example of creating the illusion of movement, like making this magic trick as amazingly as it could be?
Oh, there are so many great examples, actually. I love a lot of the stuff with like the Warner Brothers cartoons. Snow White comes to mind often to me, and the cloak that had to be redone 40 times or something.
Is that Snow White's cloak?
That is the evil stepmother's.
Oh.
The queen's cloak. Famously took like 40 times. He just kept rejecting it. He's like, no, I want it to be better. So it's one of those things. And then, of course, there are more recent examples. Trying to come up with one. It depends on what you want, too, because there's different varieties of ways to do 2D animation. Like I mentioned Rocky and Bullwinkle. Rocky and Bullwinkle is done in a limited animation style, like a very limited animation style.
Mm-hmm.
Most of its comedy doesn't come from the slapstick like the Warner Brothers cartoons. It comes from dialogue and them making quippiness and poking fun at the characters. That's one of the things that you have to think of when you're thinking of animation. It's like, because you want the animation to serve its function in the story. So if it's a more dialogue-driven show, it doesn't necessarily need the best animation to be still good. I'm also a big advocate for watching things that are not the best.
Do you have any final thoughts you wanted to give?
So the thing is, you want the motion to feel real, not look real, feel real. We don't deform we are always on model. We always look the same. But in order to make it feel real, you have to kind of squash, stretch, manipulate the form to make it feel fluid and have that balance of reality. Because the drawing is a drawing. It doesn't have life until you give it life. You have to animate it.
That goes back to what you said at the top about it's magic. You are bringing something to life that is not alive.
Exactly. So you have to look at emotion and find its primary motion, find its secondary motion, then figure out how to make that feel right for your character, for the art style, for the mood that you're setting. Every aspect of the animation should serve the story. Because if you have like a character who looks very big and heavy, having them have a delicate walk cycle might be for a joke. It could be for storytelling. It could just look wrong.
Lilith, thank you so much for telling us about something you love today.
And you didn't even get my dancing while I was explaining it.
Well, it is an audio format, not an animated one.
Yes, I can't just do my I was basically like the little dancing ball for sing-alongs.
And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in today. If you would like to learn more about animation or our guest Lilith, you can find their social media information in the episode description. And don't forget to use the hashtag #LoveThisThingCast to tell us about the things you love. I Love This Thing So Fricking Much is a production of Through the Window Media. This episode was directed by Sophie A. Katz and edited by Melissa Block. You can find us at Through the Window on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or Tumblr. That is THROU the window at all those social media sites. Be good to yourself, be kind to each other, and you'll hear from us again soon.